Behold, let's take a deep breath. Behold, the kingdom of God is within you. That ties right into our theme for the month, eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. And the prize is that oneness that we have with God, that oneness that we are in God. And just beholding the kingdom of God that is within us just helps us to remember to keep our eyes on the prize. Keep our eyes on the prize. That's what we're talking about this month. And as I said, just recognizing that the prize is oneness. The prize is oneness, however that shows up in our lives. And we have to keep our eyes on that, keep our focus on that. In order to keep our eyes on the prize, as I said last week, there are three things that we're focusing on this month. And one was flexibility, which is what we talked about last week. And this week we're talking about commitment. The invitation of commitment is the topic for today. And then the third thing is vision. But today, the idea of commitment. And you know, as I think about that word, that concept, commitment, I'm sort of chuckling to myself because that was always a really scary word for me, commitment. The idea of commitment was something that was like a four-letter word for me. I didn't want to be committed to anything. I didn't want to be tied down. I didn't want to, what if something else comes along? Or what if I decide there's something else I want to do or something else I want to be? So I didn't want to commit. And so I didn't recognize that the invitation of commitment is freedom. The invitation of commitment is freedom. Commitment does not tie us down. Commitment helps us to remain focused. Commitment helps us to be dedicated to something. Commitment keeps us from being distracted by the shiny objects. Commitment keeps us on the path. Commitment keeps us helps us to return when we get distracted. Helps us to return when we get off the path. When we get off the main road. Commitment is what brings us back to the main road. But it took me a long time to recognize that. It took me a long time to realize that even though I was afraid of that word and that concept, commitment, that I was living my life in a committed way. And most of my life was being lived in a committed way. It's just that so long as nobody used that word commitment, then I could go along and do the things that I needed to do and be as reliable as I needed to be and be as dedicated as I needed to be in different areas of my life, because that's what commitment is all about. It's about being dedicated to a particular cause or a particular activity, of being reliable and being dependable and all those and being focused. I could really focus on certain things, but the minute the word commitment came up, then I was out of there. I didn't want any part of it. I didn't want to be tied down. I wanted to be free and independent. And it took me a long time, a long way into adulthood to recognize that commitment is really about freedom. Commitment really frees us up. Commitment really allows us to keep focused on what's important and keep focused on what we want and keep focused on how to move forward into that place that we need to be in order to live our best lives. That's what commitment is all about. And so I'm inviting you today to really look at what commitment means to you. What commitment means to you, what commitment means for your life. How is commitment showing up in your life? You know, it shows up in our individual lives, and it shows up in our families and our communities, and then it spreads on out into the world. How are we living in this place of oneness? How committed are we to living in this place of oneness? How committed are we into living in a place of harmony? How committed are we living in this place of peace, in this place of balance, in this place of unity? You know, this past weekend, was a very somber time because we were dealing with and remembering September 11th and the events of September 11th and the people who gave their lives on that day. And I don't think there's any one of us who cannot remember where we were and what we were doing when we first heard of the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center. And we I don't think that we can forget either how much unity there was, how this nation pulled together, how people pulled together during that time, how much compassion there was, how much neighborliness there was, how much caring for each other there was during that time. How much oneness there appeared to be, even though people still had their differences and they still had their disagreements, there was a coming together at that time that was happening. And we really were in a place of unity, not uniformity, but we were in a place of unity, a place of being one nation, of being one people, of being of one mind of sorts, in coming together around that time. And when we look 20 years later at where we are today and how there doesn't appear to be unity anywhere, how there doesn't appear to be compassion, that there doesn't appear to be a coming together, there doesn't appear to be even a wanting to come together. And I was just so reminded of that as I look back. It seemed almost like 20 years ago when 9/11 happened, was a time of innocence. A time of innocence in this country, whereas now we have moved so far from it. But you know what? We don't have to be that far away from it. We don't have to be that far away from it. If we keep our eyes on the prize, if we keep our eyes on the prize of oneness, if we keep our eyes on the prize of oneness that shows up as unity, if we keep our eyes on the prize of oneness that shows up as peace, if we keep our eyes on the prize of oneness that shows up as love, if we keep our eyes on the prize of oneness that shows up of coming together, of being together, of living together, if we keep our eyes on that prize, then we can just continue to move forward. We can continue to move forward. Yes, having our differences. Yes, being individuals, but knowing that at our core, we're all one. Knowing that at our core, we're all one, and that one is individualized through each one of us. And so that's what I'm inviting us to do today, to just really keep our eyes on the prize. And, you know, when we talk when I talk about unity and what we need in our nation, I always say that, and we all know that it has to start with each one of us in our own individual lives. Unity has to start with each one of us in our own individual relationships, in our own communities, in the way that we are with each other, in the way that we are with family members, in the way that we are with the person in the grocery store, in the way that we are in the person on the highway driving in front of us. Whatever the case may be, it has to start there. And that's where our commitment has to be. Our commitment has to be for whatever it is we want. If we are going to keep our eyes on the prize, then we have to be committed to that. We have to be committed to that. And that's not to say that there aren't times when we will get off the path a little bit. There aren't times when we will forget. There aren't times when when shiny objects will come along and we'll be pulled off the path a little bit. But you know, our commitment is what brings us back. Our commitment is what brings us back. Whenever I say shiny objects, I think of me going into a store. And for me, my daughter and I can do many things together. We are very close in many things we can do together. Shopping is not particularly one of them, because as soon as we go in the store, she wants to get the cart, particularly Costco, and just walk straight through to get whatever she wants and come out. I go in, and as soon as I walk in the door, I go, oh, the shiny object catches my eye. And then I head down one aisle, and then I head down the next, and I find her somewhere in the store foot tapping, trying to figure out where I am, or calling me on my phone to see where I am and whatever. So we are real friendly when we go shopping together, because I get distracted by the shiny objects, and she wants to be committed to going in the store and getting one thing and coming right out, which doesn't particularly work for me. So what I realize is that that's something we can't do together, and we shouldn't do together. And I also recognize that if I'm going to be dedicated, if I'm going to be focused, if I'm going to be committed, then I have to decide, okay, I'm going in the store to get this. And I'm just using the store as an example, but just this is where my focus has to be, because I'm committed to do this. I'm committed to go in, get this, and then come back out. But if I get if I got distracted by the shiny object, if I wasn't committed when I went in the store, then there's nothing to keep me from being pulled off track. She's committed when she walks in. She knows exactly where she's going. She knows exactly what she wants. She walks in, she gets it, and she leaves. So that's because she has that commitment. And commitment is what brings us, what keeps us focused. Commitment is what keeps our feet on the path. Commitment is what keeps us moving forward so that we can continue to put one foot in front of the other to get what it is we want. To get what it is we want. And I facetiously talk about our relationship and going into the store, or little things like that, because that's when I'm always reminded of shiny objects pulling me off, distracting me, pulling me off the path, making me forget what it is I came in there for, because everything looks so great. There's no reason to have to focus on the one thing I came in there when all this other stuff is there. But you know what? We can't walk through our lives that way. We can't walk through our lives that way. The important thing for us to do is to stay focused, is to stay committed, is to keep our eyes on the prize, because there's so many distractions out there. There's so many distractions out there. There's so many things to pull us off, to pull our eyes over the other way. There's so many distractions, the naysayers who are saying that isn't working. Why are you acting like this? It's never going to get any better. You've gotten too old to get the things that you want. You haven't done the things that you said you were going to do. You never have reached a set a goal and reached it. All those kinds of things that we hear, all the naysayers that can pull us off track. We have to, when we are committed, we can just take a breath and just move back into whatever our commitment is. When we're committed to keeping our eyes on the prize and knowing that the prize is oneness, and knowing that if there's something that we want that we're not experiencing in our lives, then it's because we are buying into a sense of separation from the all that is. Because everything that we want is contained within that all that is. And so what I'm inviting you to do today is to really refocus, rededicate yourself to what it is you really want. And I'll narrow that down to rededicate yourself to your own life. Rededicate yourself to your own life. Rededicate yourself to what you want your life to look like, how you want your life to be, how you want your life to feel, how you want to move through this life as an individual who is a part of the whole, of course. But rededicate yourself to that. Rediscover what it is you want. And that's a question that I constantly ask people. What do you really want? What do you really want? And you know, it's easy for us to say that, but then the question becomes, how committed are you to that? How willing are you to be committed to what it is you say you want? If it's health that you want in your life, how committed are you to health? Are the actions that you're taking conducive to health? Or do they show that health is a priority in your life? If it's a relationship that you want, if it's abundance and finances that you want, if whatever it is that we say we really want in our lives, then the question is, what are you willing to do for that to come into being in your life, for that to be a part of your experience? Are you willing to be committed to that? Are you willing to be focused on that? Are you willing to really make it a priority so that you are not pulled off by the shiny objects or the naysayers that will come along and tell us why we can't have those things that we want? And so I'm inviting you to really, really rediscover what is it that you really want? What is it that you really want? And then make it a priority in your life. How can it become a priority, what you really want? How can it become a priority? How can it become a priority? You know, we have, I always call September at that time of turning the corner, because my parents were educators. And so September, when school started, was always the new year for us. So you set goals in September, and it was like a new year starts in September, and you really get a chance to do all things new. And so here we are in September, and what we really are doing is approaching the end of the year. And as we approach the end of this year, how have you been with the things that you said you wanted to accomplish this year? How have you been with the things that you said you wanted for this year? How have you been, as I bring up at least once a month, the quality that you were going to allow to be expressed in and through and as your life this year? How are you with that? How committed have you been to that? How much have you prioritized that? And if you haven't, you know what? It's not too late. The shiny object would pull you off by telling you that, yes, it's too late, so come over this way. Yes, it's too late, so now you can do that. No, we can start over in each and every moment of each and every day. And so I'm inviting you to decide, what is it that you really want? What is it that you really, really, really want? And then the second thing to do is to, how committed are you to that? Be committed to that. What does commitment look like? If health is what you want, if happiness is what you want, if peace is what you want, if joy is what you want. And it's always the qualities, the spiritual qualities that show up as the things that we want. If these are the things that we want, how committed are we willing to be to it? I don't mean how involved, because there's a difference in being involved and being committed. There's a difference in being involved and being committed. Being committed is all in. All in. It's sort of like the old story of the chicken and the pig with the ham and eggs breakfast. The chicken was involved in that breakfast. The pig was totally committed. So that's what we have to be. We have to be totally committed to what it is we want. Not just involved, because involvement, we can just head off in another direction. Commitment keeps us focused. And do you know there's freedom in that? Because it's easy to say we're committed, and it's easy to show commitment when things are going really well, when we're getting the things that we want, when there are no issues coming up, when nobody's raining on our parade, when there are no naysayers out there. When we're feeling really good about ourselves, or when we're feeling really good about life, when there are no disappointments, it's really easy to say, I'm really committed to this. But when the going gets tough, and when we don't see an end in sight, when we don't see the how we're going to do that, then commitment sort of dims sometimes. And then we drop back to involvement, and then we drop back to nothing. And that's really an unfortunate thing that happens in our individual lives, in our community, and all as we move through this time of transition at Creative Living Fellowship. Then how involved are you? How committed are you? How committed are we to this community? How committed are we? Or are we just involved? And then how involved are we in this community? Because things are not laid out before us in a way that we can see, even though we know they're always laid out before us on the invisible side, on the side that we cannot see. The path is laid out before us already. The path is laid out for this community already. We can't see it, but you know what commitment does? It gives us the freedom to trust. Commitment gives us the freedom to trust. When we are committed, we are committed because we can trust God. We know that God is guiding us, God is directing us, God is showing us the way, God is leading the way. And that all we have to do is to follow in those footsteps that have been created by the Father who has gone before us. That's all we need to do. Just follow those footsteps. And it takes trust to do that. It takes trust to do that because we have to keep blinders on and stay focused on knowing that we are moving forward, and we are moving forward in a way that has already been laid out for us. And so when we are committed to the what and not trying to figure out the how, but we're committed to the what, we're committed to the moving forward, then we are free to move forward. We are free to stay focused on the goal. The goal is to move forward. The goal is to remain a community. The goal is to be a thriving community. To be a thriving community. And so, and a thriving community takes committed community members. To have a thriving life, it takes a person who is committed to thriving, to having the best life, to having the best life. And so, you know, what we have to do is the third thing that we have to do is remember to remember. We have to remember to remember. We have to remember that the science of mind has laid out for us a method for us to have those things that we want in life, to experience the things that, to live our best lives. The science of mind provides the principles and practices for us to live our very best lives. And we have to remember that. We have to remember those principles and practices. We have to remember our spiritual practice. We have to remember that way is already laid out and the practices and the principles already here. And that we have to show up. We have to show up in our own lives. And as we show up in our own individual lives, we can show up in our community lives. We can show up in every aspect of our lives. But it takes commitment to do that. It takes commitment to do that. And so I invite you to take a breath and to see just how committed are you? Are you willing to be 100% committed to whatever it is you say you want? Are you willing to be 100% committed to living your best life? And what does that look like for you? Are you willing to be 100% committed to your spiritual practice? Are you willing to be 100% committed to practice in the presence of God always? And as we practice the presence of God, that's how we live in oneness. Because when we're practicing the presence of God, we're doing like Brother Lawrence, who I talk about frequently, the Franciscan monk from the 14th century, who lived his life for God. Everything he did for God. He chopped wood for God. He lived in a monastery. And he did the menial tasks there. He chopped the wood. He took the wagon into town and got supplies. He did the cooking. He did all kinds of menial things, but everything he did for God. And this is what he says in the little book that he wrote, a book of letters that he wrote. Everything he did for God. That kept his eyes on the prize always, because he realized that his oneness, and he realized that the way to be living in that oneness was to be focused at all times and to be committed at all times. And so I'm inviting you to practice the presence, to remember to practice the presence, to remember that there is a presence, because sometimes things get pretty tough and we start feeling like we're out here by ourselves. Sometimes things get way off course from where we think they should be, or where we would like them to be, or where we need them to be. There's so many times when we feel alone. There's so many times when we feel like, well, this just isn't working. But you know what? We have to keep our eyes on the prize, and we have to continue to put one foot in front of the other foot, in front of the other foot, in front of the other foot. We have to continue to do what is before us to do in each and every moment of each and every day, even when it doesn't feel like it's making a difference, even when it doesn't feel like things are changing, even when it doesn't feel like, even when you want to go, so what? Why bother? Why bother? That's when commitment comes in. When we're committed, then we fasten those spiritual seatbelts. When the going gets rough, when the rains come, when the storms come, we fasten those seatbelts and we keep going through. We're in a place now, it's kind of like, we're in a place like coming through the desert. We being here at Creative Living Fellowship, and not only here, but in the world today. The world has changed so much from what it was, and it's not where it was, and it's not where it's going to be. We're in that middle place. We're in the desert. So we have to do those things to take care of ourselves. And those of us who live in Arizona know how to live in the desert. We have to do those things that keep us hydrated. We have to do those things that help us to deal with the heat. We have to do those things that help us to deal with the dryness of whatever the things are that happen in the desert. But it takes commitment to do that. And if we're not committed, we won't survive here. If we're not committed, we're not going to survive going through the desert. So we have to keep our eyes on the prize and then be committed to that. And then be committed to keeping our eyes on the prize. And so I'm inviting you today to really, really look at what is it that I really want? Recommit yourself to what it is you really want. Don't try to figure out how you're going to get it. That's not the question, because your how does not determine your what. Your how does not determine your what. Determine what is it that I really want? How do I want my life to look? How do I want my life to change? Because, you know, if you decide that you want your life to look different, that means a change has to happen. And if change has to happen, you got to be willing to change. And in order to be willing to change, you got to be committed to change. You got to be willing to do something different, and you got to be committed to doing something different. So as we move through this time in our individual lives, as we move through this time in our community lives, as a part of the CLF community, as we move through this time as a part of a citizen of the world, we have to be committed. We have to be committed. We have to be committed to what it is we want. And we have to keep our eyes on the prize. And we have to remember that there is a prize, that there is a prize. We have to remember. And as we do that, then all that stuff that would cloud over what it is we want, all that stuff fades into God. All that stuff fades into God. All the pain, all the stuff fades into God. And when we continue to remember the oneness, continue to remember that we're healing our sense of separation from God, it all fades into God. And that's what we have to remember. And so I invite you to take a deep breath and just allow yourself to be in that place of remembering. Allow yourself to be in that place of letting go of doubts and fears and concerns and cares. As a reading said this morning, it takes no energy to love. It takes no energy to have faith. It takes no energy to hope. It takes no energy to be in a place of oneness. The energy drainers are those things that pull us out of those places of love and hope. Those are the energy drainers. And so I'm inviting you to just be in that place of keeping your eye on the prize and being committed to that, being committed to living in oneness, being committed to having your very best life right here, right now, right where we are, with all the stuff that's going on. This is the only time you have. This is the only life you have. Be committed to that life right here and right now. So let's just take a breath as we turn within this moment. Just turning within to that place of knowing and sensing and feeling that one power, that one presence, that one mind, that one life, that one breath, that one activity that I choose to call God. That one that is my very life, that one that is the life of all of us, that one that is the life of each of us here this day. As we just turn within to that one from which we can never be separate, that we can release and let go of those things that would block, those things that would block our awareness of the one, awareness of our oneness with the one. We let go of the fear, we let go of the doubt, we let go of the anxiety. We let go of the pain, we let go of the grief, we let go of all that stuff. And we just open our hearts and we open our minds and we open our entire being. As we just say yes, yes, yes to life. We say yes, yes, yes to God. We say yes, yes, yes to oneness. And then we stand in a place of courage, a place of courage, having the courage to commit to that oneness, having the courage to commit to living a life of oneness, having the courage to release and let go of anything that would block our being in alignment with that oneness. And this is what this word is doing right here and right now. It is a word of release, a word of letting go of anything that would block, anything that would keep us from being in that place of oneness. anything that would keep us from knowing the truth of our being, that we're made in the image and likeness and out of pure spirit itself. And so I just speak the word for each of us this day, speaking a word of wholeness, speaking a word of healing in every aspect of our lives, that where healing is needed and where wholeness needs to reveal itself. Speaking a word for any and everyone who needs a prayer this day. For any and everyone who needs a prayer this day, any and everyone who's feeling separate this day, who's living a life of separation this day. I'm speaking a word of oneness for each one of us. And so I just pause momentarily so that you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer this day. You may speak their names silently or aloud, and you may speak them now. And so for all those whose names are spoken here this day, I know that God is right where each of them is, blessing and keeping them right here and right now. This prayer goes out to anyone on this planet needing a prayer, just knowing that God is everywhere present, in the midst of every situation and every circumstance, every fire, every flood, every broken heart, every loss. God is in the midst of it all. Spirit goes out to our government officials who make the decisions, knowing that they are divinely guided. They're divinely guided to make decisions that are for the highest and best of all, releasing and letting go of divisiveness and standing in a place of unity as the oneness just begins to reveal itself everywhere, and in every heart, and in every situation. All things are made new. And so I just say thank you, Father, Mother God. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for the word spoken here this day and the perfect manifestation of that word that's spoken here this day. I give great, great thanks. I know indeed that all is well, for I know indeed that all is God. And I simply allow it to be. And so it is.